Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Good Death Podcast. You know, I often will say the Good Death book could have been called the Good Life book because life and death are not exclusive of one another. And there's so much beauty and wisdom and really the acknowledgement and awareness of returning to the sacred. And the sacred is this life's journey that we have been gifted and given. And there's so much we learn from people at the end of life that teaches us everything about how to live. So thank you for stepping into this beautiful space with me so we can support each other. And again, I'll often talk about it is time for community, getting back to caring for community. And I want to say that again, community taking care of community. We don't have to wait for a law to be passed or a certain person to be elected for us to change the world. We have an opportunity every single day to choose how I'm showing up in this world. Am I showing up in fear and anger and separateness, or am I showing up with compassion, empathy, and love? Let's show up with compassion, empathy, and love. And this is the community that does that. So welcome to the Good Death Podcast. Today is a very important podcast, which I will share in a minute what we're going to talk about. But before that, when we get to community, taking care of community, Doula Givers Institute has, from day one, taught people, families, the skill of how to care for their loved one at the end of life, a skill that 100 years ago was handed down generation to generation. It is all but lost today, and it is directly affecting end of life's not going well. If you would like to learn the skills, and by the way, this is now in 15 different languages. If you would like to learn the skill, I am teaching it live. It is coming up. I will stay on. I will answer your questions. We will meet in global community. If you give me 90 minutes of your time, I promise you, your life will change. Your life will change. And you don't have to just take it from me. Take it from the people, the feedback of people who've come to this space. This live event is empowering, it is healing, and it is inspiring. And if you want to change your life, you change your perspective, and this training will do that. Doula Givers, family caregiver, end of life doula training is coming up soon. I'm putting the link in the show notes. Make sure to register. There are no replays and space is limited. So make sure you secure your spot. You do not want to miss it. Okay. Today, and I want to take a pause and a deep breath in here because this is a heavy one. And it's not heavy necessarily in, we've had heavy content that we've taught, that I've taught. But this is heavy in how I'm going to present it because I think about this all the time and I always ask, what is my why? Why am I here and how can I show up to be of the highest service in the message, in the teachings that I am providing? And this episode is going to be one of them because I've been thinking a lot about that. Now, this is titled The Caregiver Crisis and What Quality of Life Means to You. So what quality of life means to you. And by the way, quality of life is the benchmark that everything should be decided from that vantage point, from that perspective. And choosing quality of life, which we'll go into in a minute, is something that you want to do now. You don't want to wait. You don't want to wait till you're, God forbid, in the hospital with a serious illness when there's so much fear surrounding that to try and figure out what you would want or not want. Because sometimes what we will choose based on quality of life is not to pursue medications, surgeries, treatments to keep us going. And when I say keep us going, I mean keep a body breathing, keep a heart beating, because we know how to do that as medical professionals. We're really good at that. But if there's no quality of life there, what is that doing? What is the point of that? And it's not for me to decide for anyone else, but for my own self is what quality of life is. Where is the benchmark? And when would I not want my life extended when there's no quality? And making sure that I'm clear with my loved ones, I'm clear with my medical providers about when that space would be reached and what I would want after that or what I would not want. So deciding what quality of life means to you is an incredibly important thing based on caregivers and the crisis. And I'm going to go into why. So let's start out with, I want to welcome you back to the Good Death Podcast. My name is Suzanne O'Brien. I'm a registered nurse by trade. And today we're going to dive deep into one of the most urgent and heart-centered conversations of our time, the caregiver crisis, and how it could be changed by a simple, powerful question. What does quality of life mean to you? Powerful, right? Sometimes the simplest things, like this one question, can change everything. And I believe that it can. So you may be wondering, how is that connected to caregiving? How, if I decide what quality of life means to me, is that directed to the caregiving crisis or to end of life planning in general? But I want you to stay with me, because this connection could be the very thing that transforms the suffering of millions of people, caregivers and patients alike. Trust me, I see it every day. And what I have seen, I don't want to get into a very negative rabbit hole, but what I have seen is something that nobody should go through. Not the patient and not the caregiver. So I want you to hold on to that. Let's talk about what I call the medical treadmill. So there's something that I will deem as the medical treadmill. And what that is when we don't plan ahead for end of life. And by the way, planning ahead with all the people that I've been privileged and honored to be with, over 1,000 people at the end of life, the ones that had planned ahead had a better end of life by 80 to 90%, no matter what their disease process was. That is a win across the board. That is a win across the board. So if you've thought, well, I don't want to think about this and I don't want to go there, there's a 80 to 90% of a reason why you should. And here's the thing. End of life is 100% guaranteed, and it can go well, really well, with the right education, kindness, and support. But when we don't plan ahead, what happens is that we go into a default into the medical system, and that's what I call the medical treadmill, that's built to sustain life, keep it going, not to support the quality. And it's not anyone's fault. If you haven't chosen, doctors, they have to do their job. They're here to save life, to extend life. They're taught that. And that's what they're going to do. And by the way, over the last 100 years, we've made incredible medical advances. In one sense, that's great. We know how to keep people alive, and we do it all the time. But keeping people alive and living are two very different things. And that's something for you to decide, because I have seen the end of life be a 10,000 times full of more suffering because people didn't plan ahead and they went into default. And that suffering hurts everyone, the patient, the family, and also moral injury with the doctors. So it's incredibly important that we think about quality of life and we make it clear what that is. The medical treadmill looks like this: emergency room visits, hospitalizations, feeding tubes, IV antibiotics, restraints, spoon feeding people who no longer recognize their own family. All of this in the name of what you would call advanced care. But is it really care? I'm going to say absolutely not. Your loved one is going to have their end of life. I know how hard that is. I know how hard that is. Why are we making it 10,000 times more difficult and full of suffering? Who does that benefit? Do you think it benefits the person who can't recognize their loved one, who has no quality of life? Do you think it benefits the caregiver who is giving 24/7 care, not sleeping, exhausted, can't leave the house? Who is that benefiting? Why are we doing that? Is it because of simply the removal of death awareness and the fear of it? Is this really care, or is it prolonged suffering? And this is what we want to make sure that we decide for ourselves, because I'm going to tell you right now, there is not one person that I could say with 100% certainty in those positions that would have ever said, yes, I want this. Of the families that I have served, of the patients that I've cared for in this advanced state of dementia, no quality of life, not being able to talk, not being able to do anything for themselves, not being able to feed themselves, in diapers, would they have ever said, yes, that's how I want things to go? And if they do, that's fantastic. I think the most important thing is that people get exactly what they want subjectively. But here's the thing that's not being done, that people are not making informed, subjective, educated decisions for themselves. And it goes into default. There is not one person that I have served that I think would have ever chose, yes, this is what I want for my end of life. This is what I want for my caregivers, my family, and for myself. And I know, let's take a deep breath in, because it's such a heavy discussion, but it's such an important one. So it comes down to choosing what quality of life means to you and what it means to me. For me personally, it means I want to be able to recognize my loved ones. It means knowing who I am, where I am, being able to communicate, being able to enjoy the day. Yes, independence for the most part, being able to access moments of joy, awareness, peace, laugh. So if I were to lose those things, and this is where your quality of life benchmark should be, if I was not able to have those as benchmarks, recognize my loved ones, do things for myself, know where I am, then I would not want my life sustained or kept alive with artificial means. And I know how difficult that is now. With that being said, I would want to make sure that I'm kept comfortable as I am transitioning out of this world. So one of the main things is that people are kept alive by being fed, spoon-fed. They can't feed themselves. But it's almost like it's a reflex. When you put a spoon to somebody's mouth, like a baby, they open their mouth, they eat. Same thing with people with advanced dementia. This is what's sustaining their life, and it can sustain their life for a decade, a very, very long time. And so for me, again, I'll use myself as the example. When quality of life is not there anymore, I do not want a spoon put to my mouth. I want to make t-shirts that say, don't put a spoon to my mouth. But I do want to be kept comfortable on my way out. I do want people to be around. I do want to make sure that I'm not in pain, that I don't have breathing issues, and allow me to gently say goodbye to this world, surrounded by loved ones, in comfort, in love, in gratitude for being able to have this life's journey, and having my family being able to help do that. But that would be extremely clear. So if I were to lose the ability for those things, I want this to be clear with my family, which I have put in writing now. And I've also had conversations with them so that everyone knows what my wishes are. And it gives them a roadmap on how to help me if it ever came to that space. They're not having to make that decision. And this is really important. They are not deciding to not feed me. They are not deciding that my life will end. I am. And I'm basing that on concrete, clear information to them that I don't have a life anymore, that there's no quality to my life, and that this is just suffering and torture. So asking them to follow that is the most important thing that I can do for myself and for them. So let's talk about a story I want to share with you. When I was a young girl living in New York City, I was in high school and I used to babysit. And I remember babysitting for this couple, one of my first families, really lovely. And the gentleman was a dentist and he had the most loving, beautiful wife and one child. And this man was a very strong, macho, in control doctor, right? Really respected, just everything that you can kind of picture in your mind. Well, he got dementia and he got it really, really, really bad. And I saw the decline over time. And his wife would share stories they were family friends with my mom and the family about how her husband didn't recognize her, but it was worse than that. He was petrified of everything. He was petrified of her. The fear on his face of all time, not knowing where he was, not knowing who she was, not knowing what was happening. What an absolute tragedy. And this went on for years, for years. So thinking of him in this state of not just existing, but of being petrified. The care, the cost of care. The wife was an absolute angel with him, but never left her home, never did anything except for trying to be there for him. What is that? Who does that benefit? Certainly doesn't benefit this man who was tortured every minute of every day. It certainly doesn't benefit his wife or his child. So right now in the US alone, there are 54 million caregivers, according to AARP, and most of them are unpaid. Most of them are untrained. And they did a poll that said that 70% of caregivers said that they were overwhelmed, that they were exhausted, and that they didn't have any support. And this crisis, it's only going to grow. Why? One of the biggest reasons is the rise in dementia and Alzheimer's disease. These illnesses don't just last weeks or months. They often go on for years and years, and the burden for families is something like I've never seen anywhere else. The care is 24/7. It goes on for years. It is emotional, it is financial, it is spiritual, it is physical. We are not prepared, and not as a society, not as individuals, not on any of the fronts. But here's what I want to share with you. What if this one question we ask ourselves, what quality of life is to me? What if by me answering that question for myself, putting it in writing and making sure my family knows, prevents this space of me being in a suffering, lingering space for years and my family being in a suffering state for years of overwhelm, of exhaustion, of all of the above. What if by us answering this one question today, what quality of life means to me, and making sure that it is clear, can prevent that? Can we all do that? I think we can. So let's talk about the power of planning and what is known as the Dementia Advance Directive. So an advance directive is a legal document that would share what you would want or not want for advanced illness and who you would want to speak your wishes for you if you were not able to speak for yourself. But there is a specific dementia advanced directive, which is really important. And this is where planning ahead changes everything. It changes everything. I want you to know that this is my life's purpose. I have so much education and experience with cancer care, with end-of-life care, working with people globally. I have seen so many families, so many people at the end of life, and I am on a platform and mission to teach you everything that I know so that you can have the best aging and end of life experience for not just you, but for your loved ones as well. And by the way, having this conversation about end of life teaches us about life. We learn the fragility of this beautiful journey we've been given. We learn that time and how you choose to spend it and who you choose to spend it with is the most important questions you'll ever ask yourself. We learn about purpose and connecting and compassion and no judgment. And we hear from people at the end of life. So this is just a win across the board, having this conversation and planning ahead. And so what we want to do here is we want to share the Dementia Advanced Directive that allows you to express your wishes in advance if you one day lose the ability to make decisions due to dementia. So it's specifically this advanced directive, and I would encourage you to do an advanced directive in general and then a dementia advanced directive. They're two different pathways that we're really going to take down. And it's really important that your family know this and that we talk about this. So what are the things that you can say in there? Again, I use myself as an example. You can express your wishes in advance if one day you lose the ability to be able to express them. So if now they're diagnosing dementia, what's called early dementia, but sometimes that comes about very quickly. And we just don't want to get caught in that place where families don't know what we'd want. So for me, again, I'll use myself as an example. If I were to get dementia, I want my family to know explicitly, do not put a spoon to my mouth, keeping me alive. I know that's hard to hear. Please do keep me comfortable. Do not hospitalize me for infections and things that antibiotics will remove. But again, there's no quality of life there. Please allow me to have my end of life gently surrounded with comfort, with those I love, symptoms managed. This not only honors my wishes, it allows my loved ones to be free of guilt and fear in this space because we've talked about it. They don't have to guess what I want. They don't have to be put under that burden of 24/7 care. They can become my beautiful end of life guides and supporters, helping me out of this journey and this world, not be put into the role of caregiver crisis for decades to come. There's a story that's in the Good Death book. It's such a beautiful story. So we have the Good Death book. Again, you could call it the Good Life book. So here it is. And it's just so full of wisdom. In this book, there is a story that I share about Alan Shatner. He is the husband of Phyllis Shatner. And Alan received an early diagnosis of dementia. And he made a courageous and conscious choice. And he chose to pursue VSED, VSED, voluntarily stopping eating and drinking. This is a technique that hospices support. It also mimics the natural way that the body shuts down. He was supported. He was surrounded by love. And in his final days doing VSED, he describes what he was feeling as deep, deep peace. Not suffering, not starving, but a sense of deep, deep peace. Phyllis called it a beautiful death, not because it was easy, but because he chose it. Because it reflected Alan's values and because he was seen, he was heard, and he was honored in his final days. Not only did Alan have the beautiful end of life that he wanted, but Phyllis was able to support him and feel great about her role in it. She didn't have to choose. And that's what planning ahead makes possible. Humanity. Honoring humanity through end of life planning. Let's choose a more humane way forward. Let's choose a way that not only honors individuals, but supports caregivers. This is the future I want for all of us. No one should have interventions that are endless, just sustaining life when there's no quality. No prolonged sufferings. It's hard enough as it is, but why are we prolonging it? And prolonging it for years. Why don't we choose what matters most to me? Let's talk about it. Let's write it down. And let's give our families that roadmap, that piece, something they can follow to support us, where caregivers are not forced into burnout, despair, and financial ruin. And it all starts with asking this one question: what does quality of life mean to me? One question. One question. So this is what I want to share with you. We are here together. It is a beautiful journey in this humanity, and end of life is a natural, sacred part of that journey. How can we have it go as well as possible for not only people and individuals, but for the family as well? This is how. So I'm going to invite you to download the Dementia Advanced Directive. I put the link below. I invite you to talk to your loved ones about what matters most. And I invite you to share this episode with others. This is a conversation that needs to be had. Every single one of us will have an end of life. Knowing what we want and what quality of life means to me, what quality of life means to our loved ones, is how we can achieve the good death, the positive end of life. And if you are not aware already, we have an ongoing book club experience that is bringing community together in this space. It is the most incredible community that you can be part of, showing up in love. And I invite you to that. So we have the Good Death Book Club experience. I will put the link below as well. That is live every month. We go deep dive into one of the chapters of the book, but answering questions. There is so much support for you. You are loved. You are not alone. We have a caregiver crisis at this moment that is only going projected to get worse because of the numbers of our aging population. Let's do something today to stop that. And answering the question about what quality of life means to you is how we do it. I love you so very much. I know this was a hard conversation. I know this was a difficult podcast to listen to and to embrace, but here's the thing. When we change our perspective and we open up and can move past the fear of thinking about end of life, dementia for loved ones and ourselves, we can be empowered with amazing choices. And that's what we want to do here. So join us below. Make your choice. Leave me questions. I will be happy to answer them. And thank you so much for being in this episode of the Good Death Podcast. My name is Suzanne O'Brien. I will see you in the next one. Thank you, everybody.